Imagine this. It's a sunny day in 1966, and as a country you just gained your independence 6 years prior to this. The sun is shining brightly, the skies are glistening, the flowers smell more beautiful than ever, and then suddenly you hear gunshots, you hear a scream, and then you hear the radio is tuned up and a cold voice announces,
The corruption in Nigeria has been completely cleansed.
and you stand there in disbelief with just one question on your mind. Did Nigeria just have a first coup? It was 1966. Nigeria had just broken up with Queen Lizzie, or popularly known as Queen Elizabeth. Even though they had broken up physically, behind the scenes she was still the one calling the shots and pulling the strings. Nigeria had just adopted Britain's style of government. We had Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the president, Tafawa Balewa, who was the head of government, Northern Premier Ahmadu Bello, Western Premier Ladoke Akintola. As nice as this entire formation sounds, the First Republic was rife with all kinds of isms: nepotism, tribalism, favoritism. Now, all the isms had been brewing for the 6 years before this particular event happened. Everybody was getting tired, particularly the military, and the discontent grew to a head in the 15th of January, or rather on the 15th of January 1966. And we had a group of young colonial military officers, the head of which was Major Kaduna Nzuegu, which is a very ironic name combination because it's the name of a state in the north and Uzoegu is from the east, and history-wise these two places have not really liked each other. But anyways, this group of military officers said, we're tired of all of these isms and we have to do something about it. So they came up with a plan. We are going to cleanse this country of all that has been affecting it, that has been sponsoring this system that is not favorable to all of us, it's just favorable to some people. So on the 15th of January 1966, they launched a military coup which assassinated the premiers Ahmadu Bello, Ladoke Akintola, Tafawa Balewa, and the finance minister of that time, Festus Ebotie Oko. Hoping I'm pronouncing all of that right. Overall, 22 people were killed in coordinated attacks between Lagos, Ibadan, and the north. Now, when all of this was done, Major Kaduna, feeling very confident, came on air, because usually that's the thing with military coups. When they've done one, they put the country under some sort of lockdown and they seize major broadcasting services to tell you why they did what they did and how things are going to be from now henceforth. So Kaduna came on the air telling us the justification for why he did what he did. He was tired of the isms, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians in the beginning related a bit to what he said. The power seems to be concentrated to certain groups and nobody was happy with that. I think the general consensus at that time was people did not really care about what had happened, that these people had been killed, because like I said, there had been a growing discontent generally for years. But as some few hours passed after that initial radio broadcast, one thing that Kaduna forgot to mention on his radio broadcast was that the coup was not a complete success. See, for a coup to be successful, the entire army has to be under siege and you in complete control of anybody, person, group that can disrupt your plan. Now, why they had been successful in the north and I think the south, the major general who they were supposed to put under siege, which was Agunsi Nronyi, was completely not under siege. And when he saw what he had done, he used the army in Lagos to take control back from Kaduna. And also, Kaduna's initial broadcast was a reaction to the fact that BBC, which was not in the country, was broadcasting about the coup. And he was a bit confused and said, I thought Lagos was supposed to be where this broadcast was coming from. And that gave him a sense of how the coup was not completely successful, but he came out to broadcast anyway. To, I don't know, for pride's sake? As more information began to, come out about this coup, many Northerners began to ask questions like, why is it that a lot of people who died in this coup were more of our people from the north than any other tribe? And number two, why is it that President Azikiwe was conveniently absent during this entire coup? Like at that time, Azikiwe was somewhere attending a conference in one of these countries, was not in the country. And they had to call him on the phone and be like, ring, ring, Azikiwe. This was popping in the country. And at that time when Azikiwe left, he had handed over his power temporarily to another person who was of Igbo descent. And when they explained the situation to him, and he just said, okay, let's go along with, the General Agunsi Ironyi's plan. And Agunsi Ironyi came to the picture and he basically just said, we're going to take over the government completely until we hand over to a more stable civilian government, which that did not really happen. And then the third thing that the Northerners noticed was that Kaduna and his cohorts were in jail, but they were not executed immediately. Nothing happened to them. They were just locked up. Normally, when coup plotters and perpetrators are caught, they are subjected to the firing squad. Why were these people just locked up in jail and just chilling? And so the Northerners began to grow a lot of anti-Igbo rhetoric. They shouted favoritism, tribalism, the very reason why all of this was started in the first place. To them, it seemed like, they just plotted this entire thing to shift us from, having a northern influence to more of a southern influence. I don't know, they just concluded that, you know what, we don't like any of this. In fact, we hate Igbos, we hate the fact that you guys were in power, and it's on site. And truly it was. A lot of Igbo soldiers were lost during this period. It eventually led to a large civil war type situation. Actually, it led to a counter coup in that same year, and eventually the civil war that lasted for over 3 years. I think that was the Biafra War. And till today, there's still a lot of people who would not want to see Igbo men in power, and it's actually because of this particular thing that happened. This is basically the story of how the First Republic of Nigeria was shattered barely 6 years after it was rooted in the ground. And it led to a lot of military dominance over the years, bloody coups, civil conflict, riots, dissatisfied people, and a government that just kept spiraling into more and more weakness. And like I said, it also explains why there's a lot of anti-Igbo rhetoric in politics. If you check the current political climate of Nigeria, with our elections being in 2027 January, I think, you would see that there are a lot of people, when they tell you the reason why they do not want a change in power to a more competent person, in my opinion, is because he's Igbo and they just don't trust Igbos. This is the foundation of where that comes from. You know what I'm saying? But if you ask me what my opinion is, I say if Igbos got us into this mess, and if they are going to be the source of our salvation, then I say why not? I'm always going to be against tribalism and always for competence. I'm not, some people be like, oh, what an elder sees standing up is what a child cannot see sitting down. All of that is rubbish to me. We're not voting based on a person's tribe. When they were in office, what did they do is what I'm interested in. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, let me know your thoughts on this. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next episode for another day. Bye.